Well, hello, and welcome to the PGL Lobbycast, episode number 368. We are now live and bringing you some entertainment news, a little bit of chat about things going on right now. As you might have noticed, I am going solo for the first time today, so be patient with me, and here's hoping we don't get any technical difficulties since I'm kind of on my own. But since the boys are away, the girls can play or at least talk about whatever we want to. So first up, we will start you off with some news today. A few things going on in the entertainment world today, well, at least in the last couple of weeks. First off, on a sad note, we lost actor Larry Drake just a couple of days ago. There is no word as of yet as to what caused the man's death. So we'll keep you posted on that. He was, I believe, 66 years old. Now, what it looks like we have going on here is his health was a little sketchy, but no one's really saying. Now, if those of you are saying, maybe I don't recognize that name, you would definitely recognize the face. He's been a longtime character actor, Emmy winning for his roles on LA Law, among other things. And some of you might recognize him as he was the title role in Dr. Giggles, if you're a horror fan. He had iconic episodes of Tales from the Crypt. He has been around for a long time. He was a bad guy in Darkman back in the day with then unknown actors Liam Neeson and Frances McDormand. He's been around for a long time, and he did his job very well. So, sir, you will be missed. Now, a few other things jumping around the news world. Paramount, as you may have heard, a couple of weeks ago, dropped the animated version of The Little Prince for United States distribution. I guess the UK and Europe leg of distribution went okay, but they just decided the US didn't need that. Well, in stepped Netflix to pick up the slack. Good for you guys. This looks like a really interesting piece of work. So, thanks for stepping in there and doing that for us. So Netflix will be releasing that soon. And no word, to my knowledge, from Paramount as to why they made that choice. So far, I don't have a lot of details on these things for you guys. I apologize. Hopefully I can get a few of those as time goes on. Now, a little bit of gaming news. I think some of you may have already seen an article that we posted. There has been some news from Microsoft. Cross-platform gaming between Xbox and PlayStation is a possibility. They put that out there. Now, they're already have the Windows 10 link up and running, and they're kind of putting that first feelers out there to PlayStation to say that this could be a thing in the future. So no more would you have to choose between what you're going to do, which friends you're going to play with, for these reasons alone. Now you can just choose because you don't like those friends or just want to ignore them because they're kind of jerk players. Now, a few other things, minor things about television. Well, maybe not minor. I was kind of excited about both of these. Pee Wee Herman, Paul Rubens, better known as Pee Wee Herman, actually. His iconic character does have a new movie coming out, Pee Wee's Big Holiday. Now, some of us grew up with Pee Wee, or at least even if we were a little older when the Pee Wee first hit the airwaves back in the day, that was a universal show. It didn't matter what age you were, you really enjoyed Pee Wee's Playhouse. And that show, aside from giving us these strange, wacky adventures, also kickstarted the careers of Phil Hartman and Lawrence Fishburne. So it's a fairly iconic TV show. Now, all of us are a little aware of some of the trouble that Mr. Rubens ran into maybe a little later in the 80s, early 90s, and I'll be honest with you, I don't care. That's not one of those things I can get really worked up about. That might be the bad way to phrase that. Anyway, who cares? Pee-wee's back. We're getting new adventures, and it's not even apparently just a rehash of old adventures. We're getting new things in this movie. So, fantastic. We're glad to see Pee-wee coming back. At least I am. Now, another TV show that was canceled and is returning to air. This is one of my favorites. It's a show called Disappeared on Investigation Discovery. Real life episodes of people, as the title suggests, who have disappeared, and sometimes there's an ending to the story or resolution. Quite often there's not. And that show was really good at getting those cases out there and showing people that these individuals are still missing. They still need help. Their families still need help. and it was canceled, much to the chagrin of many, by Investigation Discovery, and they're bringing it back starting April 11th with new episodes, new cases, and they're going to be updating old episodes. So good for Investigation Discovery for finally understanding that this is what we wanted. Other news in television, Jonathan Rhys-Meyers is joining the cast of Vikings. Now, I'm not a big Vikings fan, but as you know, Jeff, my co-host here, is. And Mr. Myers is recently best known for his TV roles as King Henry VIII and I believe The Tudors. And he also played Dracula briefly for on a TV show as well, about the iconic character written by Bram Stoker originally. I did try to watch Dracula for a little while, and it was interesting. And Jonathan Rhys-Meyers is always easy to look at, but it was just a little slow, and I think that's what caught up with it in the end. So we're very happy to see him returning to television with a role on a really interesting show. And a couple other things. This is a little outside our normal purview, perhaps, but I'm a big fan of H.P. Lovecraft, so I did want to mention it. Apparently, a gentleman who had acquired some of H.P. Lovecraft's old papers, as he was sorting through them, discovered that there was an unpublished manuscript that he had ghostwritten for Harry Houdini. Now, this is different from his already published story that he ghostwrote for Harry Houdini. This is something different called The Cancer of Superstition. And this manuscript has been authenticated, apparently. It is H.P. Lovecraft work that nobody's ever seen before, and I'm not sure that we will see it. It is actually apparently going up for private auction. It's expected to fetch at least £50,000. And so we'll see how much it winds up going for and whether or not we're ever going to get a look at this. It would be wonderful to get more work from Mr. Lovecraft. Some of us are big fans of his, and it would be very good to see some more of his work. One other thing that I did want to address, there was an article published recently, and I think I need to give the Nerdist credit for this. And it addressed something that we've talked about on this show in the past. When we were all going apeshit about Star Wars initially when it came out, one of the things we talked about on this show was a sequence that really bothered Jeff, and apparently he was not the only one. There was a fair amount of head scratching and shoulder shrugging about this scene, and it's the sequence towards the end of the movie. The battle has been won for the moment, and Finn is desperately injured, and they're taking him in for help. And Rey and Leia see each other and hug, but there's a sequence in the background where Chewie apparently walks right by Leia and doesn't acknowledge her. This seems strange to everybody after, spoiler alert, a death earlier in the movie. So a lot of people felt that he should have stopped and comforted Leia and taken comfort from Leia, and that it was strange that he just walked right by her with no acknowledgement. It never particularly seemed strange to me. The character development that I read into that was Chewie was Han's protector, and under his watch, Han died at the hands of his own son. So perhaps he couldn't face Leia yet. That never really stuck in my craw, but I guess it did a lot of people. And recently, J.J. Abrams sat down with the Nerdist and clarified what he was thinking in that scene. And basically what he said was that he felt that as a warrior, Chewie was concerned about Finn. Finn was badly injured, clearly, and Chewie was busy seeing to him and making sure he got help. And that was all he was focused on. He said it never occurred to him how it would look to have him walk straight by Leia with no acknowledgement. So he said, no, he did say if he had it to do over again, he'd do it differently. But it was great to hear his viewpoint on a scene that has resulted in a lot of internet chatter. So thank you for the clarification, Mr. Abrams. And that, ladies and gentlemen, as I consult the Mystic phone, is about all I have for news. So I guess that will take us into the weekly watches. Let's see. I will start off with what I'm listening to. This week, I've been kind of going back and revisiting old favorites. There's been a lot of Queen, and I can definitely say this is because there's not one, but two movie trailers out right now making beautiful use of Queen music. And of course, we have the Suicide Squad's second trailer using Bohemian Rhapsody and Hardcore Henry using Don't Stop Me Now. both to great effect. I think that I'd like to think Freddie Mercury would be pleased with the way both of those are being used. One of his final instructions was, "Do whatever you want with my music, just don't make me boring." And those are certainly fun uses of his legacy, as well as the legacy of his remaining band members. So I know that that's why the Queen has been in my head a lot lately, and I've definitely been hitting Queen on the iPod. Um, let a little bit of shuffle all and revisiting David Bowie. You know, folks, I have to say that lately I thought I was getting a handle on the world's loss of David Bowie, and I got through reviewing of The Martian, where they play Starman in its entirety without breaking down into tears. So I thought I was doing great. A few days ago, Modern Love came on the radio while I was driving, and I broke down into tears. So clearly, this is still something that's a little raw for his fans. I can't imagine how his family feels. My heart still goes out to them. It also made me think of something I saw during an interview with British comedian Noel Fielding just recently. As I've mentioned in some recent podcasts, he's doing a U.S. tour right now, so he's also been hitting the interview circuit. And he mentioned David Bowie's passing a few times, and he said that people in Britain are not getting over this easily. It's like they lost a member of the royal family, only worse, was about how he phrased it. And I can see that. One of his fans said it's like we lost something elemental, like a color. I would very much agree with that. So that has been why David Bowie's been in heavy rotation again this last week. I also discovered another group that I'm rather liking. It's a new, young, up and coming kind of rock and roll, glam rock, I guess you would call them. Uh, Nouveau glam rock group called the Struts. If you haven't looked these guys up, I definitely recommend it. They've got some good music out there, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what they come up with in the future. So the Struts, check them out. Now that definitely brings us to what you watching. And what I've been watching, as I mentioned, been hitting the Noel Fielding fairly heavily since I've got a live show to see him in coming up here with and fellow co-host Brick in a couple of weeks. He's going with me to the show. He's not going to be in the show with Noel Fielding, just to clarify. Although it would be cool if he was. Now, I've been watching Boosh, a lot of luxury comedy. Definitely been hitting those. Caught up with Face Off, a few other things like that. I've definitely been watching Project Runway, which is kind of a new thing for me. Some of my friends got me into it, and if you told me that that would be something I'd ever be watching, I probably would have blown you off or laughed at you. But it's interesting. That is definitely an art form, and it's interesting to see how someone can take something like cloth and make it into these beautiful things. It's new to me, but it's interesting exploring it. I'm enjoying it. And the one thing I really did want to say, as far as what you're watching this week, I watched a movie called He Never Died. Or He Never Died, sorry, that was probably a little mushy. This is starring Henry Rollins, and it is about a brief synopsis about a quiet, reclusive, and apparently immortal man and some misadventures he finds himself stumbling into. I highly recommend it. It is on Netflix. I've made no secret of my love for Henry Rollins over the years on this show, and he does not disappoint in this movie. He's perfect for this role. I really recommend checking it out. So that's my big recommendation to you for this week. He Never Died. Check it out on Netflix. As far as what you playing, it's a lot of the same that we've talked about the last couple of weeks. I'm still working through White Knight, a very stylized arcade game that can be found on Xbox One. It's interesting. The gameplay is a little draggy, a little slow, but the storyline and style are enough to keep me engaged so far. So I'm interested to see where that goes. And I'm still working my way through the Room 3 alternate endings. Yes, on my way. If you haven't picked that up yet, it's been out on, as I've mentioned before, it's an Apple app. So it's been out for Apple products for a while. It's now available for Kindle. It is very reasonably priced. I highly recommend you do it if you like puzzle games. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think that brings us about to the end of our podcast this week. That's about all I have to throw at you. If you have any suggestions on things you want us to talk about, please let us know. In the meantime, you have a great week, and I will be back, hopefully with more of my co-hosts in tow. So have a good week, folks. Take care.